Lyft was founded in 2012 and is one of the largest transportation networks in the US and in Canada. As the world shifts away from car ownership to transportation as a service, Lyft is at the forefront of this massive societal change. The transportation network brings together, among others, rideshare, bikes, scooters, car rentals and food delivery all in one app. Lyft is based in San Francisco, California and operates across the US and in Canada. It is the second largest ride-sharing company in the US after Uber. Curtis Scott is the VP Risk and Customer Platform at Lyft. He is passionate about creating a future where gig workers enjoy secure and independent work. He is convinced that platforms and insurers should partner together to make this a reality. Before joining Lyft, Curtis was an early executive in Uber's legal and insurance teams. In our experience, he is one of the few people with a true vision on insurance and the platform economy. Next on stage, Curtis Scott.
What I wanted to talk about is really how platforms are changing the data that's available today and what you can do from an underwriting perspective. So a little bit about me, you've already heard, I started out my career as a lawyer. There's a few too many of those in the United States. And so I went back to school and got into product work actually. And I spent 12 years in the insurance industry building out different consumer insurance products before getting into technology. And so what I really like about the tech side is you kind of solve problems from the ground up. So you build something where it doesn't exist from a whiteboard perspective. So at Lyft, I've done everything from data collection, curation, and over the last 6 years at both Uber and Lyft, I've stood up some of the largest telematics programs in the world, so how a car is being driven, how fast it brakes, turning, and then the largest usage-based insurance programs in the world. So it's been a fun journey, and I always show a couple of these highlights just of how important insurance is to the gig economy. It's our number one expense for the company, for our bottom line, and it's also something you have to have the car on the road legally, so we can't have growth, we can't expand without insurance. So Lyft's model, or Lyft's mission, if you will, is to improve people's lives with the world's best transportation. And literally that's what Lyft does, is we do first rideshare. So how do you get around in a car from A to Z? We're the largest operator of shared bikes in the world. So it's a really large growing business that we're excited about. Scooters we do, and then also transit. You can book a train ride and also rent a car to go on a longer trip. So really we get from A to Z throughout cities. And I think, Lyft has really invested in understanding how to make every ride safe and how to insure every ride and make sure that it's a great experience. And so, like I said earlier, insurance is one of our largest costs. So we have to both manage that as a business, but it's also part of our narrative of having a good ride. And we want every ride to be safe. So ideally, nothing bad happens. But if something does, insurance is there to help make it better. So we put the two things together, safety and insurance, and the goal is obviously never to have an accident, and if we can avoid all the accidents, that would be the ideal outcome. But things do happen when you're doing millions of rides a day. So how do we go about doing this? First, it looks a little bit like an insurance company. So I have a team of engineers, actuaries, product managers, that work on these problems day in, day out. It's not a small thing. This is not just something that's transactional. I'm not simply just buying insurance. I'm building the entire risk platform to try to, one, identify where risks are, two, avoid those risks to try not to have the accident, and then three, price and service the accidents that do happen in a sensible manner. So I think platforms have really changed insurance over the last few years in that there's so much more data available than we ever had in the past. Insurance used to be very asymmetrical. One person had all the underwriting data, often the insurance company. You went to a broker, they gave you a couple different prices. You generally picked the lowest price, and that was the transaction. We're in a different world today, though, where that doesn't really make sense anymore. If we look just at, Lyft, for instance, it's amazing how much data, useful data, this phone can create. If you think of it, every trip, we have not one phone, the drivers, but also the riders that gets in the car. And there's an accelerometer and a gyroscope, and we can get all kinds of interesting data points off of this that can be used to predict safety, can also be used to underwrite insurance, and that's what we do. And so here's I look at Lyft at 3 different categories. The first, what is the driver doing? How long have they been on the platform? What type of vehicle are they using? How have they been rated? I look at other things like the environment. What stage of the trip are they in? Has it rained today? Is there sun in the angle of the eye of the driver as they're going around? Wildly predictable stuff that we didn't used to use. And then lastly, the phone itself. Is the driver touching the phone? Are they squeezing it, tapping it? Is it making noises? All of these things we are now using to underwrite the auto insurance risk on the platform. We're talking about dozens and dozens of high quality data points that you didn't used to have in the back. If we were to go back just 15 years, it would be, in the US at least, what's your credit score? And where is the car garaged at night? And usually people lie about both of those two things. So this is a much more accurate way. And this is a model that we've had in production now for 5 years, and we keep refreshing it 3 times a year to get better and better outcomes. And really, it's a life cycle of, like I said, safety. Where is the risk? How can we avoid it? And then the accidents that do happen, how can we promptly take care of them at the right price? And I think some lessons I've learned along the way that are interesting is personal versus commercial is a very dated way of looking at the world. I remember when I first started buying insurance at Uber for auto, I would go to a lot of insurance companies, and the president of commercial lines and the president of personal lines didn't really know each other. And I had kind of a weird problem. I've got a car being driven around by a person, so it's like personal auto, but I've got scale and large risk, so it's like commercial, and I kind of need the best of both worlds to make it work. And it took a little while for the insurance industry to change and recognize that, but I credit it, having stood up partnerships now with over 50 insurers in 86 countries. I am amazed at how well it can adapt. I think insurance sometimes gets a bad rap of being, stuffy or old, and I think it's actually anything but that. It's the original big data industry. And I think what you find at the end of the day is insurance people like to take care of people, like to solve problems, but they need data to understand it. And what we've really done at Lyft and prior at Uber was to create these partnerships to explain the wealth of data that are on our platform. And really, we're now taking what I would call data science in the tech world and marrying it to actuarial science in the insurance world. So really, how do you know if something's happening? What's the quality? And then what's the statistical significance to risk and pricing? So where I see the future is I think insurance is going to get much more granular because of this data. One of the companies that I advise today, called Lula, I think is capitalizing on this, in that insurance is episodic. People should buy insurance for the time and duration they need at the right price, and we can finally do that for the first time in its existence because of all of the great data that's available. It's very antiquated to buy something for a year just in case when you may only be using something for a few minutes. Think of it as a 10-minute Uber ride, a 5-minute car ride on a bike, maybe a 3-day stay at an Airbnb. So it's really, I think, exciting times. I think the insurance industry is changing a lot and really starting to recognize how assets are being utilized differently, and that each person has a different risk profile. One thing that we've noted with drivers is you get better the more you drive. It's muscle memory, it's experience. But you also lose that after you take a break and maybe go away for 6 months and then come back, you have to learn to drive well again. And so it's just interesting that I think static pricing categories of, tiers of these 10 levels aren't just ignore where the market is these days. And the other thing is the world's changing faster than ever. We have new risks that are emerging, new companies, new ideas, and we have to respond quicker. We have to insure these risks. The world needs insurance, but we also don't have 10 years to study something and cram up with actuarial patterns like we did in the past. The world moves too fast these days. So we move quicker. And I think we partner to do that. We have to explain our data. We need to partner with insurers. And I think the world's getting there. And so I always say is, which insurance company will win in the future? I often get asked that, having worked with so many of them. I say, the company that's willing to change is going to be the company that wins. It's new. There are whole new worlds, whole new underwriting cycles, whole new risks. Climate's changing. Cyber, it goes on, but I think it's an exciting time. It's an exciting renaissance, in my opinion, right now in insurance, and it's because we're looking at data again. We're coming up with new problems, new solutions in ways we haven't in the past. So I wanted to show one last example of something I've worked on. I think it's kind of cool, and then I will try to get you back on track here. But one of the first things I built at Lyft was a telematics program. And so telematics required that one, we collect data. We had to collect it in real time to give insights. Hey, you're speeding. Hey, slow down. And we had to also create the ability to then share that data in real time with insurers so we could get credit for it in terms of what is the pricing, what's the rate. That same tech over time, we found other ways to deploy it. And so this is an example of where a Lyft driver was robbed of their car at gunpoint in the United States. And we were able to stand up a safety program based on telematics that allows us in real time to detect when something bad is happening. So we saw, hey, this trip has gone off course where it was supposed to be. We reach out to the driver, is something wrong? The driver is able to tell us, yes, my car has been stolen. We're then able to, with our partner ADT, pipe that geolocation telematic data instantly as to where the car is. Police are notified, shared that information in real time, and the car is recovered in 30 minutes. And this is all something that was done, originally for an insurance reason, and that we've turned it over time into a safety product. So again, one outcome is, you pay for the stolen car. Another outcome is you recover the stolen car and try to make that person's day better. And I was glad in this case we were able to do it. But I think it's an interesting application, right, of what someone might say, hey, a boring pricing insurance product has a real world safety benefit. So exciting times in insurance. I hope you all have a great conference. It's great to be back out in the wild. I can't tell you enough. And thank you for your time today.